The massive brown dwarf star hung like a dim copper penny in the blackness of space. Captain James Walker stood at the bridge of the Earth exploration vessel Pioneer, his weathered hands gripping the safety rail as he stared at the readings on the main screen. What had started as a routine survey mission had just become the discovery of a lifetime. "Captain, you need to see this," called out Robert, the ship's sensor specialist. His voice carried an excitement that made Walker turn immediately. "The readings are off the charts. There's something big out there. Actually, multiple somethings." Walker moved to Robert's station, his boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. The sensor display showed dozens of large objects in a stable orbit around the brown dwarf. They were arranged in an oddly perfect pattern, too organized to be natural debris. "Launch the probe drones," Walker ordered, his voice steady despite his growing excitement. "Let's get a closer look." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, 3 probe drones detached from the Pioneer and accelerated toward the mysterious objects. As the first visual feeds came in, the bridge fell silent. Ships, dozens of them. Ancient warships of incredible size, their hulls dark and weathered by countless years in space. They drifted in formation, like silent sentinels guarding the brown dwarf. Some were as large as small moons, their designs unlike anything in humanity's database. "How old are they?" Walker asked, his eyes fixed on the images. Linda, the ship's archaeologist, was already analyzing the data, based on initial readings. "At least 15,000 years old, Captain. Maybe older." She shook her head in amazement. "They're incredibly well preserved. The brown dwarf's magnetic field must have protected them from most of the cosmic radiation." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The Pioneer's crew documented everything they could about the ancient fleet. The ships were built from materials that seemed primitive by modern standards, but their construction showed remarkable engineering. Thick armor plates, redundant systems, and mechanical solutions that had long since been replaced by energy shields and quantum technology in modern vessels. Walker was recording his captain's log when the first message from the Galactic Council arrived. The Council, made up of the most advanced species in known space, had picked up their discovery broadcast. Their response was not what he expected. Captain Walker, the holographic image of Council Representative Gray, spoke with barely concealed amusement. "We've reviewed your findings. These vessels are indeed remnants of the predecessor civilization, but they're of no significant value. Their technology is, how should I put this, hopelessly obsolete." Walker kept his face neutral, but his jaw tightened slightly. "With all due respect, Representative, these ships are an incredible historical find. They might give us insights into—" "Captain," Gray interrupted, "your species is still relatively new to interstellar travel. Your excitement is understandable. But trust me, we've seen countless such relics. They're interesting from a historical perspective, perhaps, but nothing more. Modern ships are 1,000 times more advanced." Walker looked at the ancient fleet through the bridge window. Something about them called to him, spoke of strength and endurance that transcended their age. Would the Council object if Earth claimed salvage rights? He asked carefully. Gray actually laughed. "Object? No, no. If your people wish to waste resources studying obsolete technology, you're welcome to it. I'll have the rights transferred immediately. Consider it a gesture of goodwill toward our younger members." After the transmission ended, Linda approached Walker. "They think we're fools," she said quietly. Walker nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "They do. But you know what? Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from places others have dismissed." He turned to his crew. "Begin preparations for a detailed survey. I want every inch of these ships documented. There's something special here. I can feel it." As the Pioneer's crew sprang into action, the ancient fleet continued its eternal orbit around the brown dwarf. Their dark hulls held secrets that would soon shake the foundations of the galaxy's power structure. Humanity had just taken its first step toward proving that sometimes The oldest solutions could solve the newest problems. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled with holographic displays and floating lights. Admiral Thomas Reed stood at the center of the vast circular room, surrounded by representatives from 50 advanced civilizations. Their faces showed various degrees of amusement and contempt as he presented Earth's plans for the ancient fleet. As you can see, Reed continued, pointing to the rotating hologram of one of the ancient vessels, these ships have unique design elements that could be valuable. Valuable. The Brightwing ambassador cut him off with a dismissive wave of his luminescent hand. Admiral Reed, my species was traveling between stars when your people were still figuring out how to make steel. Those ships are nothing but space debris. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Reed kept his composure, though his fingers tightened slightly on the presentation controller. He was a veteran of many space battles, but this diplomatic warfare was testing his patience. The hull composition alone. Reed tried again. Is primitive metal alloy, interrupted Council Member White, her crystalline form shimming with barely contained mirth. Our ships use quantum-locked force fields. We haven't needed physical armor for centuries. Reed looked around the chamber, noting the smirks and condescending looks. Even the junior representatives were openly laughing now. Only the ancient librarian species, watching silently from their elevated platform, showed no reaction. Earth has already committed significant resources to this project, Reed stated firmly. Captain Walker's team has begun detailed analysis of the first vessel. And, oh, let them have their fun, the Brightwing ambassador said to the chamber at large. It's rather cute, isn't it? Like watching a child play with discarded toys. Several representatives chuckled at this. Reed felt his face grow hot, but years of military discipline kept his voice steady. We believe there's potential in combining these robust designs with modern technology, sometimes older solutions. Admiral. Council Member White interrupted again. Your species' fascination with antiquated technology is charming, but let's be practical. Those ships were built by a civilization that vanished before your people invented the wheel. They're museum pieces at best. The Brightwing ambassador floated down from his platform, his wings casting shifting patterns of light across the chamber floor. Perhaps we should make this a formal learning opportunity, he suggested with exaggerated kindness. We could send some of our junior engineers to observe your efforts. It might help humanity understand just how far behind they are in real space technology. More laughter filled the chamber. Reed stood straight, his weathered face showing no emotion despite the mockery. He thought of the message he'd received from Captain Walker just that morning, the fascinating discoveries they were already making about the ancient fleet's adaptive systems. But he kept that information to himself. Thank you for your concern, Reed said carefully. Earth appreciates the Council's permission to study the fleet. We'll proceed with our investigation as planned. Of course, the Brightwing ambassador said with a patronizing smile. Do let us know if you need help understanding any of the primitive technologies you find. We'd be happy to explain why they were abandoned millennia ago. As Reed left the chamber, he heard the representatives still chuckling behind him. In the corridor, he pulled out his communicator and sent a brief message to Captain Walker. Proceed as planned. They suspect nothing. The reply came quickly. First ship's systems responding beyond expectations. They have no idea what they're dismissing. Reed smiled slightly as he walked toward his ship. Let them laugh. Let them mock. Humanity had been underestimated before, and it had always proven its critics wrong. The ancient fleet might look like space junk to the advanced races, but Earth's engineers were already seeing possibilities that the arrogant council members couldn't imagine. Sometimes, Reed thought, the best advantage was having your opponents believe you were no threat at all. Dr. Maria Rogers wiped sweat from her forehead as she crawled through another massive maintenance tunnel in the ancient ship. Her flashlight beam showed thick metal pipes and mechanical systems that stretched into the darkness. Behind her, her team of engineers followed, scanning every inch of the vessel. Look at this, she called out, her voice filled with wonder. Her hand ran along a perfectly preserved control panel. These systems are still responding after thousands of years. The build quality is incredible. Bill, her chief mechanical engineer, nodded as he took readings. Modern ships would have fallen apart centuries ago. These old builders knew what they were doing. The team had spent 3 months studying just one of the ancient ships. While the Galactic Council saw primitive technology, Maria and her engineers saw something different. They saw genius. "Come look at this engine setup," she called to her team. They gathered around a massive chamber that housed the ship's power core. "See how everything's connected. It's not just mechanical backup. It's a completely different way of thinking about systems." Tom, the youngest engineer, looked confused. "But it's so simple. There's no quantum field generators, no AI controls." Maria smiled. "Exactly. And that's what makes it brilliant." She pointed to various parts of the engine. "Modern ships need constant computer adjustments to run. This system adapts naturally, like a living thing. The mechanical parts work together, compensate for each other. It's not primitive. It's perfect." Back in the makeshift command center they'd set up, Maria reviewed the day's findings with Captain Walker. Holograms showed detailed scans of the ship's systems. "The Council thinks these ships are worthless because they're not packed with advanced technology," Maria explained. "But look at this." She pulled up a diagram of the ship's armor. "The metal doesn't just block damage. It spreads the impact across the whole hull. It's like the ship is one big shock absorber." Walker studied the diagrams with interest. "Can we replicate it?" "Better." Maria's eyes lit up. "We can improve it. These ships were built to last, Captain. They're not delicate racing cars. They're tanks. And with modern materials." She trailed off, her mind already racing with possibilities. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Maria's team began carefully testing different systems, combining old and new technology. They discovered that the ancient ship's adaptive mechanical systems worked perfectly with modern quantum computers. Instead of replacing the old technology, they enhanced it. "It's like the ships are learning," Bill said one day, watching as another successful test completed. "The old systems give them strength, and our new tech gives them speed and precision. Best of both worlds." Maria nodded, making notes on her tablet. "The Galactic Council thinks technology only moves forward, that newer always means better. They'd forgotten that sometimes the old ways had wisdom we've lost." One evening, as the team was wrapping up their day's work, Tom approached Maria with an odd look on his face. "Dr. Rogers, I think I figured out why these ships survived so long." He showed her his latest scans. "The whole design. It's not just about being tough. It's about being repairable, adaptable, like they were built to face unknown challenges." Maria studied the scans, a smile spreading across her face. "The Council sees primitive technology because they're looking for advanced systems. But these ships," she gestured at the massive vessel around them, "these ships were built to endure, to survive anything. And with what we're adding to them." She left the thought unfinished, but everyone knew what she meant. The ancient fleet was about to become something new, a perfect blend of old and new, strength and sophistication. The Council thought humanity was wasting time studying obsolete technology. Soon, they would learn just how wrong they were. As the work continued in secret, the ancient ships began to wake up, one by one. Their systems, dormant for thousands of years, merged with new technology in ways their original builders never imagined. Humanity hadn't just discovered an old fleet. They had found the key to something revolutionary. 18 months after the discovery, the ancient fleet's restoration site buzzed with activity. Hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid, dozens of ships floated in formation, their hulls now gleaming with a mix of old and new technology. Dr. Maria Rogers stood at the command center's window, watching as workers in spacesuits moved between vessels. "Test firing of Ship 7's hybrid engines starting now." Bill's voice came through the speakers. On cue, one of the massive ships lit up with a soft blue glow. The new quantum-enhanced engines worked perfectly with the ancient mechanical systems. Power output at 120% of projections, Tom reported from his station. The old girls exceeding all our expectations. Maria smiled. They'd done more than just restore the fleet. They'd transformed it. Each ship now carried a unique combination of ancient durability and modern innovation. The thick armor plates now contained layers of smart metals that could repair themselves. The mechanical control systems worked alongside advanced AI, each making the other stronger. Ready for the shield test, Bill announced. Firing weapons at minimum power. A smaller test ship fired energy beams at Ship 7. The ancient vessel's hull glowed briefly, but showed no damage. The new hybrid shield system, built around the original armor design, had worked perfectly. Amazing, Captain Walker said, stepping up beside Maria. The Council's worthless junk just survived an attack that would cripple their best ships. Maria nodded, pulling up detailed readings on her screen. The old systems are actually making our modern technology work better. It's like, she paused, searching for the right words. It's like they were built to be improved. Like the original builders knew someone would eventually finish what they started. Through the window, they watched as more ships came online. Each vessel was unique, a perfect blend of past and present. The mechanical backup systems meant they could function even if their modern components failed. The AI systems learned from the ancient mechanical designs, creating new solutions that neither human nor machine could have developed alone. Admiral Reed's latest message says the Council still hasn't caught on. Walker mentioned, his voice low. They think we're just playing with old toys. Let them think that, Maria replied. She touched a control, bringing up an image of the fleet's flagship. The massive vessel had been the first they'd restored, and it was now the most powerful ship ever built by human hands. We've learned more in 18 months than they have in centuries. The day's tests continued, each one proving the fleet's capabilities. The ships could move faster than modern vessels while using less power. Their hybrid weapon systems hit harder than anything in known space. But most importantly, they could take damage that would destroy other ships and keep fighting. You know what the Council's biggest mistake was? Tom asked during the evening briefing. They thought simple meant weak. They forgot that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. Maria looked at the young engineer with pride. He'd learned well over the past months. Exactly. They're so focused on making everything more complex that they've forgotten about reliability, about survival. As night fell on the asteroid base, Maria made her final rounds. The fleet hung silent in space, their dark hulls hiding their true power. Soon, they would reveal what they could do. Soon, the Council would learn that they had made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity. Final system checks complete, Bill reported. All 30 ships are ready for full power tests tomorrow. Maria looked at her tablet, reviewing the test schedule. Everything was ready. In just a few days, they would begin the final phase of testing. After that, the fleet would be ready for real operations. Send word to Admiral Reed, she told Walker. Tell him Project Phoenix is almost complete. She paused, looking at the mighty vessels through the window. Tell him the fleet isn't just ready. It's better than we ever dreamed possible. As the lights dimmed in the command center, the ancient ships waited in formation. They were no longer relics of a forgotten age. They had become something new, something powerful, something that would change the galaxy forever. The emergency alert blared through the Galactic Council chamber. Red lights flashed as panicked representatives rushed to their seats. On the main screen, a massive wall of energy approached from the galaxy's core, a solar storm unlike anything seen in recorded history. Our latest projections show the storm will hit major trade routes in less than 48 hours, the Brightwing ambassador announced, his usual arrogance replaced by fear. The radiation levels are beyond anything our shields can handle. Council member White's crystalline form flickered with anxiety. We've already lost contact with 3 Brightwing battle groups. Their quantum shields failed instantly when the storm's first wave hit them. The chamber erupted in chaos. Hundreds of ships were in the storm's path, including passenger vessels and cargo freighters. The most advanced rescue ships in the galaxy, with their sophisticated shield systems, couldn't get close enough to help. The storm is disrupting all known shield configurations, a technical advisor reported. Modern ships can't function in that level of radiation. Their computer systems fail immediately. Admiral Reed sat quietly in the human section, watching the panic unfold. He thought about the ancient fleet, now restored and hidden, waiting for a moment to prove its worth. He pressed a small button on his communicator, sending a prearranged signal. "What about the civilian ships in Sector 7? Someone shouted. "There are thousands of passengers. We can't reach them," the Brightwing ambassador admitted. "Our best ships can't get within a light year of the storm front." The radiation. A new alert cut him off. The chamber's main screen showed a fleet of ships appearing at the edge of the affected space. Ships that looked both old and new at the same time. Ships that shouldn't have existed. "What are those?" Council Member White demanded. Admiral Reed stood up. "Those are the ships you called worthless," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent chamber. "The ancient fleet that you mocked." "Impossible," the Brightwing ambassador sputtered. "Those outdated relics can't possibly." "Look," Reed pointed to the screen. The restored fleet was moving straight into the storm. Their hybrid shields glowed as radiation washed over them, but they kept going. The mechanical systems, enhanced but not replaced by modern technology, worked perfectly even as the storm raged around them. "This is Captain James Walker of the Earth Fleet Phoenix," a voice broadcasted across all frequencies. "We are moving to assist ships in distress. Our vessels can operate in the storm. Stand by for rescue operations." The council watched in stunned silence as the ancient ships, now restored and improved by human engineers, pushed through the deadly storm. Their thick hulls and adaptive systems, combined with carefully chosen modern enhancements, made them immune to the radiation that crippled more advanced vessels. "How?" Council Member White whispered. "How is this possible?" "The original builders created these ships to survive anything," Reed explained, allowing himself a small smile. "We didn't try to replace their work. We built upon it. Sometimes the old ways, the simple ways, are the best ways." On the screen, the first rescue operation began. An ancient ship, its hull gleaming with both old and new technology, extended massive docking arms to a stranded passenger liner. The hybrid systems worked perfectly, protecting both vessels as survivors were transferred. "We're receiving reports from Sector 7, an aide announced. "The Earth fleet is successfully evacuating civilians. Their ships are. They're completely unaffected by the storm." The Brightwing ambassador stared at Reed. "Why didn't you tell us? Why keep this secret?" Reed looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of those who had laughed at humanity's efforts. "Would you have believed us? Or would you have continued to mock our primitive understanding of technology?" As reports of successful rescues flooded in, the council members watched in silence. The ancient fleet, dismissed as worthless, had become the most powerful force in the galaxy, and humanity, the young species they had underestimated, had made it possible. The storm raged on, but the restored ships continued their work, saving thousands. In the council chamber, the laughter had stopped. The mockery was over. The time for respect had begun. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the flagship Phoenix, watching as another rescue operation unfolded. Through the reinforced viewports, the solar storm's energy waves rippled like angry red serpents across space. His ship's hybrid systems hummed steadily, unbothered by the chaos outside. "Rescue team reports all passengers transferred from the Brightwing cruiser," Robert announced from his station. "That makes 3,000 saved in the last hour alone." Walker nodded, studying the tactical display. Dozens of green dots showed his fleet's positions, spread out across the affected sectors. Red dots marked stranded vessels still waiting for help. The ancient ships moved with purpose through the storm, each one a perfect blend of old strength and new innovation. "Captain," Maria's voice came through the comm system. "Engineering reports the hybrid shields are actually getting stronger. The mechanical systems are learning from the storm's pattern. They're adapting." Walker smiled. Even now, the ancient ships were surprising them. The very features that the Council had mocked, the mechanical backups, the thick armor, the simple but robust design, were proving to be their greatest advantages. "Distress call from Sector 9, Linda reported urgently. "A Brightwing diplomatic vessel. Their primary systems are failing." Walker checked the tactical display. The Brightwing ship was carrying several council members who had been among the loudest critics of the ancient fleet. Now they needed that same fleet to save them. "Plot an intercept course," he ordered. "Let's show them what these obsolete ships can really do." The Phoenix turned gracefully, its ancient engines working in perfect harmony with modern navigation systems. As they approached the stranded vessel, Walker could see its sophisticated shields flickering and dying, leaving it exposed to the deadly radiation. "This is the Brightwing vessel Star Diamond." A familiar voice crackled through the comm. It was the same ambassador who had laughed at humanity's efforts in the council chamber. "Our systems are critical. We request immediate assistance." Walker keyed the comm. "This is Captain Walker of the Phoenix. Stand by for emergency docking." "Don't worry, Ambassador. Our primitive technology will have you out of danger soon." The rescue operation went smoothly. The Phoenix's hybrid systems protected both ships as the Brightwing diplomats were brought aboard. Walker met them in the main cargo bay, now converted to an emergency shelter. "This ship," the ambassador looked around in wonder. "How is it functioning in the storm?" "Simple, really," Walker replied, leading them to safety. "We didn't try to fight the storm with fancy shields. We built something that could work with it, adapt to it. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most advanced one." Throughout the sector, similar scenes played out. The restored fleet, once dismissed as worthless relics, proved itself again and again. Modern ships lay helpless while the ancient vessels, enhanced by human innovation, worked tirelessly to save lives. "Incoming message from Fleet Command," Robert announced. "They're calling it the largest rescue operation in galactic history. Over 20,000 beings saved so far." Walker watched as his crews worked, human ingenuity and determination combining with the ancient ship's incredible design to achieve the impossible. The vessels that had been called museum pieces were now the most valuable ships in the galaxy. "Captain," Maria called from engineering. "The Council is requesting permission to send technical observers to study our hybrid systems. They want to learn how we merged the old technology with the new." Walker thought about the months of mockery, the dismissive laughs, the condescending remarks. But he also thought about the true purpose of the ancient fleet, to protect and preserve life. "Tell them yes," he replied. "Once the crisis is over, we'll show them everything." It's time for the galaxy to learn that progress isn't always about replacing the old with the new. Sometimes, it's about understanding the wisdom of the past and building upon it. As the Phoenix moved to its next rescue, Walker felt a deep sense of pride. Humanity had seen value where others saw only obsolescence. They had respected the past while embracing the future. And in doing so, they had saved countless lives. The ancient fleet sailed on through the storm, no longer relics, but legends in the making. 1 month after the great solar storm, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Gone were the smirks and condescending glances. In their place were expressions of respect, even admiration, as Admiral Reed presented humanity's final report on the rescue operations. 37,422 lives saved, Reed announced, his voice steady. Not a single ship of the ancient fleet lost. Not one system failure. He paused, looking around the chamber. All thanks to technology you called worthless. The Brightwing ambassador, who had himself been rescued by the fleet, stood up. "We were wrong, Admiral. Completely wrong. Our arrogance nearly cost us everything." On the main screen, images showed the restored fleet in action. The hybrid ships looked magnificent, their hulls bearing the marks of their journey through the storm, but otherwise undamaged. Modern vessels were still being repaired, their sophisticated systems ravaged by the radiation, but the ancient ships were ready for duty again almost immediately. Dr. Rogers, Council Member White called out, "Could you explain how you achieved this remarkable integration of old and new technology?" Maria stepped forward, her plain engineer's uniform standing out among the ornate robes of the council members. "The secret was respect," she said simply. "We didn't try to replace the original systems. We listened to what they could teach us." She brought up detailed schematics showing how human engineers had worked with the ancient technology instead of against it. The mechanical systems that had been mocked as primitive now drew gasps of appreciation from the council's technical experts. "These designs," one expert admitted, "they're incredible. We were so focused on making everything more advanced that we forgot the value of reliability, of redundancy, of pure mechanical genius." The council chamber buzzed with excited discussion as Maria explained how the hybrid systems worked. The ancient ship's ability to adapt, to learn, to survive had been enhanced by modern technology, but never replaced. It was a perfect marriage of past and present. "Earth has received requests from 17 worlds for technical assistance," Reed announced. "They want to learn our methods, to understand how we succeeded where more advanced civilizations failed." The librarian species, silent throughout the crisis, finally spoke. Perhaps their ancient voice echoed through the chamber. "This is why the fleet waited so long. It needed a species that could see its true value. One that understood that progress is not always about discarding the old, but building upon it wisely." Captain Walker, standing at the back of the chamber, smiled as he remembered the fleet's first rescue operation. The moment when those ancient ships, restored and enhanced by human hands, had proven their worth beyond any doubt. "The Council recognizes Earth's achievement," the Brightwing ambassador declared formally. "We propose the creation of a new division within the Council, the Heritage Technology Integration Bureau, and we nominate humanity to lead it." The vote was unanimous. The species that had been mocked for studying museum pieces would now teach the galaxy how to blend the wisdom of the past with the innovations of the present. Later, as the council session ended, Walker found Maria staring out a window at the ancient fleet, now proudly displayed in orbit around the council world. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" she said softly. "Not despite their age, but because of it. All those years of waiting for someone to understand." Walker nodded. The council learned an important lesson. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. Sometimes looking backward is the best way to move forward. As the sun set on the council world, the ancient fleet caught the light, their hulls gleaming with the perfect blend of old and new. They were no longer relics of a forgotten age, but symbols of a new era. An era where humanity's unique ability to learn from the past would help guide the galaxy's future. The ships that had been mocked now flew with pride, carrying with them a simple truth. True wisdom lies not in dismissing the old, but in understanding it. And sometimes, those who others underestimate prove to be the greatest teachers of all.